On this week's episode, we're going to be discussing a new open source tool that lets you use your face to control your device. Not your face, Michael. It'll probably just air out. But everyone else's face, they'll be able to control.
Why would it arrow my face? Because of my glasses?
Welcome to Destination Linux, your favorite video podcast. My name is Ryan.
I'm Jill.
And I'm Michael, and also confused, because why would my face not work with it? Is it the glasses?
No, it's not the glasses. You just have to look in a mirror and you'll figure it out. We're also going to cover IBM telling us here at DL, oh yeah, watch this. They said that. Well, not really, but
100%.
It'll make sense in a moment. Plus, we got some Linux gaming tips and tricks. All this coming up right now on Destination Linux. Our community feedback this week comes from Gregory. Gregory has this to say: I was listening to another podcast. Sorry, LOL, but I listen to most Linux and BSD podcasts. All right, Greg, this is not starting off very well.
How could you? How could you?
Yeah. Listen to other podcasts. Like, why? What would you need to?
There are other podcasts?
Apparently, and he listens to them. I don't know why I picked this. I should just throw this out. You know what? We don't have community feedback.
Moving on.
Yeah, we get right into the... No, I'm kidding. They spoke about open source project called AI Track and gave us the link, which we'll have in the show notes. In regards to using AI Track to focus windows or moving the mouse pointer, could this possibly be used as a tool for people with disabilities, such as unable to grasp or move a mouse to interact with the computer? Possibly using a double and triple eye blink at an adjustable rate for click and double click, or using audio, speaking left and right click, scroll up and down with a computer interface to a radio that would give them access to the ham radio community as well. I don't have any coding skills. I would, however, like to assist any group involved in adding such capability to Linux. My background, electronics technician since 1986, ham radio operator since 1994, Linux user since 1996. If you have any group that could use non-coding help, please let me know. Gregory. And P.S., a MacGyver mindset. In the Air Force stationed in Japan in 1980, I fixed the air conditioning for the base payroll mainframe with the spring from my pen. See? That's amazing there.
That's awesome.
That's
I love
brilliant.
the MacGyver reference as well.
Yes.
Man, that was a good TV show.
That is a very MacGyver-esque thing, too.
Yeah.
That is awesome.
Yeah. So... I think that there is a lot of potential here for this technology. In fact, later in the show, we're going to talk about another open source project. So your message here is very, very timely. But I love the fact that you just want to get in there and get right involved and kind of help with this stuff. And obviously, you've got a lot of skills that I think could be useful for such a thing.
You got a special set of skills that are good for people like
There you go. And I like the idea of being able to, Apple's new VR headset. I can't remember the name of the thing right now.
The Vision Pro.
The Vision Pro. That thing is bombed really bad for Apple, as I understand it.
Yeah.
Understandably, it costs like $3,000 on the cheap end.
Yeah. In an economy that's complete trash, you release this super expensive thing that doesn't have a ton of utility in it and that stuff. But it may have, it may pick up later on.
Uncanny valley when people look through it.
Yeah. Enterprise or other applications potentially in the future. But I know that one of the things that people were most impressed by this device was the fact that when you would look at things, it would select the icons perfectly, at perfect eye tracking. And then you could do gestures and things to open apps and stuff. So there was some really cool technology in there that even though that device was a bomb, I think is going to be useful later on, probably for Apple.
I mean, it's already being useful because they announced there's people who are talking about it, and they are saying it's directly from Apple, and but it's not like official notification like at an event or anything. But the next version of iOS is supposedly taking that technology and putting eye tracking for accessibility in the next release.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, that's
so
nice.
That is very cool. I mean, even if the Vision Pro bombed, the fact that comes from that feature technology comes from it is a success for a lot of people. So the concept of eye tracking for this stuff, like is asked in our feedback about the, being able to blink to activate a click and stuff like that. There's so much value here. And I was super interested in this because it would be amazing. So I went to this project that they linked and looked to see what was happening with it. And turns out it seems dormant because the last commit was over 2 years ago. So that part's a bummer. But I also found something similar to it called OpenTrack. But that's not necessarily, these are both for gaming base. And I think it's just head tracking, but not face tracking. So there's, elements here that it could be expanded upon to be an awesome thing. So hopefully that does happen.
There's
Yeah.
pieces of code out there that are quite impressive. And Jill, I don't know if you were thinking this, but there's this amazing mind that we get to meet at scale every single year. And they always show us the enhancements to their current project, Nova. And Nova has this incredible virtual reality software that's being created. And I'm so excited to eventually have Nova on and share that with all of you. But Nova every year is like, no, I'm not going to come on the show yet. I got way more cool stuff coming for it. But the demonstrations that I've seen are quite impressive. So when I see stuff like this, I think about Nova creating that virtual reality software and all of the power in that, and then maybe being able to take things like this and create, obviously, a much cheaper and open source version of some, Vision Pro type solutions here.
Nova has really spearheaded the VR on the Linux desktop and has made major innovations and stride in that area. And he's spoken several times at scale about projects, and I'm really looking forward to having Nova on. Nova has grown up with me at scale. So, yeah, Nova is very special. And there's another project that I've known about for a while. It's regarding building an eye-controlled mouse using Python and OpenCV. And OpenCV is an open source computer vision library. And there's been several projects around Python and OpenCV. But this one on Medium by a developer has a really easy to use tutorial how to accomplish it. And it doesn't take very long to do, it looks like.
Cool.
Yeah.
Now, I see so much potential with this technology. Obviously, for those with disabilities, this could be a huge game changer for them. But I think everybody could utilize technology like this and really have new ways of interfacing with our computers and devices. And you know what? We're going to be talking about that coming up right here in our main topic, Michael. We're going to be talking about a solution for that.
And if you have other topics you would like for us to talk about, send us a comment at destinationlinux.net/comments. Hey, Ryan, what do you call an endpoint security product that works perfectly but makes users miserable?
Let me think about that. I've heard of this one before. That's a failure, Michael.
That's a failure. You're right. Exactly. The old approach to endpoint security is to lock down employee devices and roll out changes through forced restarts, but that just doesn't work. The IT department is miserable because they've got a mountain of support tickets. Employees start using personal devices just to get their work done. And executives opt out the first time that makes them late for a meeting or something like that. You can't have a successful security implementation unless you work with end users. And that's where Kolide comes in. Their user-first device trust solution notifies users as soon as it detects an issue on their device. And more importantly, it teaches them how to solve it themselves without needing help from IT. That way, untrusted devices are blocked from authenticating, but the users don't stay blocked. Kolide is designed for companies with Okta, and it works on Linux, macOS, and Windows, as well as mobile devices. So if you have Okta and you're looking for a device trust solution that respects your team, visit destinationlinux.net/Kolide to watch a demo and see how it works. That's destinationlinux.net/KOLIDE.
This is really interesting because I've been a part of many security rollouts that have had this exact situation described here happen, where the second, it'll roll out to users, they're miserable, but the second it impacts an executive,
that's when we change everything.
The whole thing gets rolled back, and now we're less secure than we were before because they don't really, these products don't really respect, the entire implementation of what people have to do to get them set up and started and used. And so this is awesome. I would take something like Kolide, go to my business and be like, hey, we need something like this that respects end users, that we have security, but it's security that people can use without getting completely frustrated and not being able to do their job, because that's doesn't really help either if you can't do your job, but it's secure.
Yeah. Balancing security and usability is a very important thing, and it's awesome that Kolide makes that possible.
By the way, Michael, we have a example of this with a bank. We won't name them, but they're so secure that we can't even get into our bank anymore.
Exactly.
And we are so
we don't have to worry
frustrated.
about people getting into our money because we can't.
We're changing banks. That's how frustrating their super secure system is. So that shows you the importance of not only your internal employees having good security, but what you're doing for your external customers as well. You want the security without the frustration. Check out Kolide.
DestinationLinux.net/Kolide. So we're going to get into the meat of the topics this week with controlling your device with your face. Not my face, apparently, but other people's face could do it. So sci-fi movies and TV shows have been a great predictor of the future technologies, and there have been many attempts. Like we have Minority Report, which is a classic. Everybody knows how it works. And
I'm making sounds, but people listening to this have no idea what I'm doing. I'm moving my hands around, moving the screens.
Like
and the people watching it are muting it to make a GIF of this now. Minority Report was there to give you like an idea of what you could do with a PC beyond the basics of a mouse and a keyboard. And there have been many other movies that suggest different ideas. But Minority Report seems to be like the most
quoted.
Most quoted. Also the most kind of referenced because of like the just reaching out into thin air and being able to do it. And there have been a lot of attempts to kind of get something like this possible with various different devices that are gesture based. And some of them are really cool, and some of them are gimmicky or janky.
None of them really taken off. There's some for the disability community that I think are really neat, but there's none that's taken off in the masses that,
that's
everyone.
Because, a lot of them are like super ridiculously expensive.
Yes.
And that is just the fact that they're even focusing on that demographic and making that expensive is just, that's a side note, I guess. Well, we still don't have a complete solution for PC, but we can sort of do it with mobile, and maybe we can adapt that to our computers as well. But Google has done something cool, and I know you're shocked.
No,
you're shocked that Google has done something cool.
Oh, they killed another project.
In fact, no, they open sourced a project.
Wow!
And what they open sourced is GameFace. Now, it is also worth noting that they have a little bit of a caveat where the Android developers will need to first integrate GameFace into their apps, but the idea is there, which is awesome.
Michael, GameFace right now. Do it. Let's see your GameFace. Yeah, that's GameFace's
like when you're playing Rocket League.
That's awesome.
No, when I'm playing Rocket League.
So the interesting
those in the audio,
thing,
I facepalmed.
Anyway, about the fact going back to Minority Report is Jarvis technically is the newer reference for this, right? And Iron Man, when he was moving the screens around and throwing them and stuff.
Jarvis is the 2.0 of Minority Report because it's basically the same concept, just more of a 3D space rather than a 2D space on the Minority Report.
But when we see that in movies, it is something that makes me really want that technology. Like every geek that sees that type of stuff just kind of gets like geek chills at the thought of being able to throw screens up, be able to expand them, interact with them, and do that. And I think in a way, virtual reality tries to give us that, like some of the virtual reality glasses and stuff. But I don't want to have to wear a headset to do it. Minority Report, Jarvis didn't have to have a headset. It would be cool to be able to do this with your device just straight up.
I mean, you have some kind of like hologram emitter.
Yeah, you got to have a hologram, man. I mean, it's the old Star Wars 3D chess hologram set that we still don't have a good version of. All of these things we see in the movies, we still don't have. We're supposed to have flying cars by now.
We have hoverboards. I mean, like, they're called hoverboards, but they don't hover, and they're not boards.
The future's been really disappointing.
It has been. Did you know, Ryan, that there is actually a record player that emits a hologram when you play the vinyl record? I mean, that's how old that technology is.
Yeah.
I mean, holograms have been around for a while, but not, and then of
Yeah.
course they got the ones where they've brought artists back to life on stage and stuff like that.
Yeah,
But apparently it's extraordinarily
it is good.
expensive and all
Yeah.
this type of stuff. So this game face is really interesting to me. It says through the device's camera, it can seamlessly track facial expressions and head movements, translating them into intuitive and personalized control. Developers can now build applications where the users can configure their experience by customizing facial expressions, gesture sizes, cursor speed, and more. So, Michael, your face palm could be what you use to close your applications when you're frustrated with them.
That would be great. Like if it doesn't work, or like, it's the whole waiting to respond thing, and you just face palm and it just kills it. That'd be great.
Yeah.
Because then you don't have to worry about it anymore. Because unless you face palm a lot as a normal action.
It's so interesting, Google, to me, because I want to love this company so hard, but they make it so difficult to love them. Because think about this. Apple barely gives anything to open source. I mean, anything they've given to open source has been like a long time ago, pretty much.
And also because it benefited them in the first place to do it.
Yeah. And Google here, this is the same technology, obviously, or similar technology, not the same, that Apple's using in their Vision Pro with the tracking eyes and facial expressions and stuff like that for gesturing. It'd be very easy for them to just keep this closed source and not give it to the community. And maybe it's one of those things where they're like, hey, this is not something we're going to use right now. But the fact that they are open sourcing it is a really big deal, which makes me want to like Google more than I like Apple because of things like this, because Apple just does so little to give back to the community. Whereas Google's done a lot here, even though they kill a lot of stuff. But maybe this is their new thing. Instead of killing everything, they just give it to the open source community. That would be
that would be great. Yeah. But that's also but I mean, that's kind of like a code. Maybe is this a code dump or an actual open sourcing of a project? That's the question. Because if it's a code dump, that's unfortunate. But if it's something like Kubernetes where they open sourced it and just let it kind of be its own thing, that would be awesome. So I guess I'll say good job to Google for open sourcing such an important type of project to benefit so many people. But at the same time, it's Google, so it's probably powered through their servers and still tracking everything you do with your face. And,
well, now if it's open source, we can find out. The project was inspired by Lance Carr, a quadriplegic video game streamer. Carr has a severe form of muscular dystrophy, which sadly limits movement to only head and thumbs. Project GameFace is developed as cheaper, more accessible alternative to expensive head tracking systems. And you were talking about that, Michael, how super expensive all of this stuff is. And so you've got these, because we talk about these companies, but we never mean the employees themselves, because Google has incredibly smart, some of the best in the world engineers working on software. And they probably want to do a lot more in open source and things like that. And
our problem is the executive decisions.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. The do no evil that went away stuff. So I think it's amazing that they spent the time to build this and then open source it and give it to the community out there. And I love its inspiration and its story here. But I also think this is useful, not for just individuals with disabilities, but I think for everybody to be able to utilize their phone. That technology is already being built into phones, the facial recognition, to where there's certain small portions of it, like look away. A lot of phones have that, where if you're not looking at the screen, it will turn off or it will pause the video automatically. So it's kind of looking at that. There's also lots of different gesturing and things, obviously, that you can do with your phone. But if it's using its camera, maybe it could start tracking those gestures through the camera itself and not having to physically touch the screen in there. And I just think this is kind of getting to the future of how we may one day finally see the keyboard and mouse get replaced. And I'm pretty excited about that because they're old. It's time for them to go. And even
but they're
Bill
very
Gates,
functional and efficient.
Even Bill Gates, when he was asked a question about like where did he think computers would be by now, he was like, I was really hoping we still wouldn't be using a keyboard and mouse or something like that out there. I remember in an interview, and I thought that's so interesting. That was like his big hope. And now look at Windows 11. I mean, it's like 8 steps backwards. So
that's the MO of Microsoft. They do, but they've also very rarely make any steps forward. It's basically the side steps with a little bit of lean. That's about it.
I mean, if you look at Windows 11 from Windows 10, Michael, this is a huge revolution. You're talking about taking
the menu on the left and moving it to the middle.
To the middle.
Oh my
yeah.
God. Can you imagine?
It just changed everything. I was like, what's Linux when I saw that?
So
And now it's going to take screenshots of what you're doing.
Yeah.
With the Windows recall.
So here's the thing. This happens every other release of Microsoft Windows is terrible.
Yeah.
Every single time. It's Windows 7, then Windows 8, terrible. Windows 10, then Windows 11, terrible. Same thing with XP. XP was kind of terrible too, but Vista, people hate it. And it's the same thing. Every single other release is always terrible. Yeah. But this one is an extra level of stupid.
Terrible.
Like, it's so ridiculous. We talked about it last week that the recall thing is cringe and super creepy, but it is so ridiculous. The amount of videos I've seen recently of people saying like, maybe you should switch to Linux purely based on the fact that recall exists is, first, thank you, Microsoft. And two, it's such a huge problem that people are finally, kind of seeing that this should not be a thing in your system.
Well, but I did find something that, the problem is like technology like this never gets, we have the ability to do it, but it never really makes it anywhere, right? Because they're always dreaming of taking things too far that we don't need. And my example is today, I thought of a reason why I would want something like recall. I was working on a PowerPoint and it was one of those situations where I had to move this I have cut from this spreadsheet and make this very complicated visual in the PowerPoint presentation. And I finished page up to like page 2, and I started working on page 3. For whatever reason, I got distracted, went back, and I thought, because I was editing one I'd already sent, that I was working on a new page, but in fact, I was erasing all the work that I just did on the second page on accident and pasting stuff over it, and I'd lost that work. So I was like, okay, let me Control Z and undo it. But I could only undo it like 6 steps. And then that was the max.
That's not why you need recall. That's why you need a system that has more than 6 undos.
That's my point. Now, imagine instead of the stupid recall feature he talked about, they said now applications like PowerPoint have limitless ability to just undo. You can, what is it called in the artistic thing, like damage free, or what do you call it?
Non-destructive.
Non-destructive.
So you have
that's
this
a different thing anyway.
Yeah.
Because there's non-destructive and then there's undo. Because you can have both. And that's what most artistic tools do, like Photoshop, Photopea, Krita. They have those as both things. But the thing about it is that most applications that are good have the ability to undo endlessly. If you have a limit of undo, then you're terrible software programmers. That's just bad.
Well, PowerPoint has a limit. I reached it. And it sucked.
They probably actually have a premium thing where you can get extra undos if you pay $500 a month.
But instead of making my whole computer screenshot, just give me unlimited undos inside a program until I close it. That would have been a cool feature they announced where Microsoft kind of takes care of that. They're not taking screenshots of everything, just when you're in the middle of a program, or maybe it's a button you click and you can have unlimited undos in that software.
Also, just don't do the screenshots entirely, because every time I come up with something that is maybe that would be helpful, there's always another solution for that thing that's even more simple to do and doesn't require like privacy nightmare stuff.
Yeah, Ryan, on Linux, you can just configure scrot. It's a console screen capture utility that I use all the time, and you can tell it to go off at certain times. So you can program it to, every 10 seconds or whatever, take a screenshot. And then you have your own private.
Don't be teaching people how to make their own recall on Linux.
Yeah.
That is not going to be
cool.
ideal.
This is the tip of the week, by the way. It's a tool called scrot, apparently.
Yeah, it's one of my. I'm using it right now.
It's a command line tool that you can build scripts for and automate stuff and automatically make it do screenshots based on whatever you want, because it's a command line tool with anything you want to do, whether it's cron or whatever other script you want to do that activates it. You can just
different.
You can make a super powerful recall for Linux if you wanted to.
Yeah.
I love it. I love that idea. All right. So back to being able to control things with your face. Obviously, this is meant for mobile devices, but I'm thinking bigger, Michael. I'm always thinking big here. I got big ideas.
Big ideas. What are those big ideas?
My big idea is what if we put it on a PC? Boom. Mind.
Weren't we talking about that?
Shut up, Michael. The point is, I want to get away from the keyboard and mouse. I want to be able to gesture with Jarvis or Minority Report. And I love seeing software like this. It gets us potentially closer to it.
I can't wait until there's the amount of possibilities this could offer, where we recreate everyone interacting with their computer in a new way that is effectively like Dance Dance Revolution. And there's stuff that has to fly by. You have to activate it in order to open your start menu or whatever. Why not?
Well, I just remember the Star Trek episode where Scotty goes up to the mouse and he's like, "Hello, computer. Yeah. Hello, computer." And the guy's like, "Just use the keyboard." And he's like, "How quaint." And that's I think about that.
Star Trek 4, The Voyage Home movie. One of the best Star Trek movies of all time.
We are kind of already...
Star Trek 2, The Wrath of Khan.
We are kind of already in that space of the touchscreen stuff.
Yeah.
So we are in the touch, because the whole thing about Star Trek is there's touchscreen everywhere, right? Yeah. So
absolutely, yeah.
It's basically there for the most part. But yeah, I mean, this would be really cool to be able to have gestures in addition to keyboard and mouse.
Yeah.
I still want to keep my keyboard and mouse.
I do too. And actually, I've been following the Google Game Face and people who have issues trying to use their hands with the keyboard and mouse, being able to play like a first-person shooter. That was really, really impressive when I seen some of those demos. And to me, honestly, I mean, Google actually has been working on this for quite some time. And I just look at it as kind of a new version of Google Glass. I mean, we had talked about Google Glass not too long ago, and it was intended as a development platform to grow from. And these were some of the ideas, I think, that spurred from that.
Yeah. And they open sourced it.
Yeah.
That's the big thing.
Absolutely. It's awesome.
The big key takeaway here is future for way we use our computers, except for Michael, his face won't work. And
apparently.
And the fact that, thank you, Google, for doing something cool in the open source community. And now we can use that, obviously, for many different applications within.
That'd be very cool. Also, why don't we touchscreens that are the size of monitors? I was thinking, what if we had... No, I'm saying, for example, there's these... this LG has that dual up monitor. It's just like a really big vertical one.
Yeah.
What if you got 3 of those, and then you could interact with it like a Minority Report in that way?
So each one has like a camera in it that's kind of tracking gestures and stuff.
That would.
Yeah, but also there's interface where you can actually touch on the screen and move things around and stuff like that. I know it'd be kind of fun because I think that would be a more potential of getting to that Minority Report. The Jarvis stuff, that'd be really cool, but that's pretty far away.
Yeah.
But I think that would actually make it work. It wouldn't technically be the augmented reality of it floating, but you'd still get the basics of the goal of trying to get it that way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I like it. I think it's our future. When I look at my kids, anytime I put a computer in front of them, the first thing they do is start touching the screen to my horror. Because I'm like, it's not a touch screen. Stop. They don't understand the idea of a computer that you don't interact with utilizing your hands. To them, it makes no sense.
And also it's funny that Macs do not have touchscreen.
Yes, I know.
And when kids mess with a Mac, it's always you're just going to smudge it. That's all you're doing.
Yeah. Well, Apple's right. Kids are going to have an iPad and go, "What's a computer? What's a computer, Dad? What's a computer?"
This is your fault, Apple. This episode of Destination Linux is sponsored by LINBIT. LINBIT has been keeping digital businesses running for over 20 years. They're the makers of open source products like DRBD, which is high availability software that has been part of the Linux kernel since 2010, and LinStore, industry-leading open source software-defined storage. LINBIT has an active presence in the open source community, and they collaborate with the community to help identify and build new features. LINBIT provides enterprise-grade software that runs on a variety of platforms and OSs without vendor lock-in. What that means is that you could use the software on any platform, including specific hardware that you want to use, or just off-the-shelf hardware that you get and connect it. All of this stuff can be interchanged really easily. And with DRBD and LinStore, you can have high-speed replicated block storage in almost any configuration, whether it's Kubernetes, Apache Cloud, or OpenNebula. There's even DRBD proxy for long-distance replication. LINBIT is run by its founders to this day, and all of its engineers and developers are in-house with offices in Europe and North America, which allows them to have global 24/7 support to complement their enterprise offerings. Visit linbit.com to learn more about the people behind LINBIT and the awesome software for block storage, duplication, and more.
Moving on into the news here. So IBM, they have a new announcement that we were just talking about when we were at the Red Hat Summit, Michael. One of the points that I was sharing with you is that I wanted Watson. Like, why aren't they using Watson more? Because it's a well-known name.
We talked
in
about
the
this on the
industry.
show too.
Yeah,
right?
we did.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just a couple episodes ago.
Yeah, I know. That's what I was saying. Like, we talked about it.
I mean, we talked about it at the summit, but also on the show. So people can go look at that episode. I'll have it linked in the show notes.
It's a really good episode.
Yeah.
That one you're talking about. It's just a couple ones ago. But this one that we're talking about here, I was trying to cover my tracks, like that I hadn't forgotten that we talked about it in an episode.
Aw.
Well done, sir. You did it so well.
All right. So IBM at their annual Think conference, after we talked about it, we said, hey, they should be using this. They're like, oh, yeah, watch this. And at their IBM Think conference, IBM announced several upcoming updates and enhancements to its family of Watson X assistants, along with upcoming capability in Watson X Orchestrate to help clients build their own AI assistants across various domains. So, it's not good enough to utilize like an enterprise supposed to be made for everybody Swiss Army knife kind of AI. And if you think about it, it makes a lot of sense. Like ChatGPT may work for like my college work or other stuff, but maybe not going to work so well in an enterprise environment where you have a very specific need that you need filled. So you're going to want your own kind of custom version.
And also you don't want to put your enterprise data in ChatGPT, considering they're going to take every single thing you put there.
100%. You're going to want your own thing. So this to me is super smart way of utilizing, of saying, hey, you can create your own AI assistants for your own customers, your own internal employees. And obviously you can build this on your own platform that's more secure and private.
Good job, IBM. And clearly they listened to us and weren't already planning this. This was a last minute addition to their announcement because of our show. I'm sure of it.
They're like, those geniuses over there. You know what? Let's do it.
There's no way that they had already planned this for months and months for an announcement and an event.
What do you think about this, Jill?
It's just so wonderful to have the major players like IBM, Red Hat, Google, Hitachi, NVIDIA, collaborating and working on open source AI options like we have talked about many times before here on Destination Linux. I truly believe they are listening to us.
Yeah. Or we're just that smart.
Yeah.
We're just really good at predicting what these companies are doing, apparently.
Yeah.
We should be going into the stock exchange or something, whatever.
We're on the same wavelength.
Yeah.
For sure. So I wanted to mention what IBM CEO Arvind Krishna states in his opening keynote at the IBM Think conference. This is a beautiful, beautiful statement of how powerful open source is. We firmly believe in bringing open innovation to AI. We want to use the power of open source to do with AI what was successfully done with Linux and OpenShift. Open means choice. Open means more eyes on the code, more minds on the problems, and more hands on the solutions. For any technology to gain velocity and become ubiquitous, you've got to balance three things: competition, innovation, and safety. Open source is a great way to achieve all three. And so I wish everyone who wrongly states that AI shouldn't be open reads and hears that. That was just a nice.
It was really interesting that on a Joe Rogan podcast that I saw a clip of, he was talking about open source. And in it, he starts talking about all these big companies trying to control open source and how dangerous that is, or trying to control AI and how dangerous that is. And he thought the solution was open source. And I love that all of these platforms and things are starting to get the point and get it out to their listeners about the power of open source. And, I think in the clip, he was talking about the fear of having one company like Google or NVIDIA or any one company just controlling all of AI and what you can access and what you can do with it. And it's just neat to see the respect coming. But what IBM and Red Hat are doing here specifically are really making that open source capability accessible for the enterprise, which then will feed down, of course, into the consumer level as well. So they're not just kind of talking about, hey, it would be really cool to have open source AI. They're doing things that are making it happen. And IBM is also expanding its NVIDIA GPU offerings with the latest and greatest NVIDIA Core GPUs, as well as support for RHEL AI and OpenShift AI to help enterprises and developers address all of their AI needs in there as well. So we're really starting to see this idea of open source AI pick up in a big way. And I'm very, very excited about this for Linux because we can take Clippy and that will be the face of Linux open source. And then we make Clippy a genius.
You had me at Clippy.
Yeah.
Imagine the power.
Exactly. I think it's great that they're doing this, obviously. And your point about the that podcast with Rogan talking about the open source being the solution, it's obviously the case because I love the way it was phrased by the IBM CEO when he said the more minds on the problems.
Yeah.
That part I've never heard before. And I really like that because of the idea of more people thinking about what the problems are and what the solutions can be. I mean, I think that's a great way to put it for sure. And I hope that they are, people are seeing this more clearly because, I mean, open source has a problem where a lot of companies sort of pretend to be open, but are not. There's the open core stuff. There's the source available stuff. And there's things that are really like, oh, we're opening it, but they're not really using the term correctly. They're using it in a way that's purposefully misleading. And that's unfortunate with the term that we have. But the fact that it's gotten to the point where people who have nothing to do with programming, nothing to do with software development, know what that is to any degree, that's awesome. Yeah. But also, we talked about how Watson would be a good brand and the fact that they're doing it. Watson X is not the right brand. Just Watson.
I agree. Take the X away. Just make it Watson.
Yeah. There's no value in the X. It doesn't matter. No one knows what that means. I mean, sure, you mean it for like, I don't know what it actually term stands
to be
for.
Like,
you mean
what,
like
the
enterprise
next generation or something?
Yeah.
Could be that. Yeah. It's still better than not taking advantage of the brand of Watson at all. But there's no reason for the X. Just, use the thing
X
that everyone already knows.
Yeah.
Just X to X.
Exit. Yes, exit.
Yeah, that's a really good point because I thought the same thing when I saw Watson X. I'm like, it doesn't flow. I don't want to use Watson X. And then I start thinking
Watson
about
is not the greatest brand of an AI ever, but it's already so well known that you might as well use it.
Yeah.
But Watson X sounds like, honestly, it sounds like an enterprise version of the terrible Jason movie. The horror movie, the Jason X.
I have worse than Jason movie. When I think of the X thing, I think of Twitter.
Oh, that's true.
Like they need to remove it from that alone. Like, you really want to be, the whole trying to rebrand it to X thing. Like, oh, it's just so dumb.
I think if they want to differentiate it, maybe Watson Open. There's Watson, the original, which was proprietary, and Watson Open.
Just Watson.
Watson 2.0. You can do that if you want.
If you make a good brand, use that good brand.
Yeah, and
exactly.
they got the the word out there with all those episodes of Jeopardy. Everyone knew it was a household name what Watson was.
That had to be a marketing ploy, right? You
Yeah.
had to be doing that for marketing. Otherwise, why are you there? So if you successfully create a good brand through marketing, use it.
Yeah. Watson is a good brand. It's very popular. We talked about that in a previous episode. I wanted to bring that up because no one's mentioned it.
I'm glad
before.
you mentioned
Thank
that.
you.
It'd be really unfortunate if we
Michael.
forgot to talk about that.
Appreciate it. All right, Jill. Take us into gaming. All this sci-fi stuff has me just geared up to start gaming, but I want to use gestures.
Absolutely.
Gestures or nothing.
Yeah.
Do you dream of getting off this planet?
Yes.
Here we go again. But this time, Ryan may or may not have had anything to do with it.
I wrote this actually.
It was
you?
Michael.
Yeah.
And this time, Ryan gets a pass because Michael picked a game from one of my favorite shows of all time, Star Trek.
By the way, can we get a shirt, Michael, that says "You dream of getting off this planet"?
Yes, we need
that. Would be a
definitely.
great shirt.
I love it. We should definitely do that.
Yes. Okay.
So seriously, though, with all the talk of AI, one of the best AI characters of all time is Star Trek's Data. So with a new Star Trek game out, we had no choice but to talk about it. The game is called Star Trek Resurgence, and it describes itself on Steam like this: engage in diplomacy, pilot shuttlecraft, and use your tricorder and phaser to overcome challenging puzzles and deadly threats. Tough decisions will impact relationships, your story, and the fate of the galaxy. What will you do?
What will you do, Ryan?
I'm going to phaser the crap out of everybody. This diplomacy thing, right out the door. I'm going to pilot the shuttlecraft right into the Klingons, what do they call it? The landing bay.
Yeah.
Phaser all the Klingons, and I'm going to just take
directive. We're just going to to go after everybody.
Yeah. I'm taking them all out.
Who cares about a tricorder? We don't need to know what we're shooting. We just need to know we're shooting.
Taking it out, man.
You're going to take the... You're going to... take a suggestion from the old Captain Kirk playbook, Ryan, aren't you?
That's it, man. I'm Kirk all the way, by the way. Like, that's my boy right there is Kirk. So
what I wish? I wish this game was like Mass Effect, where you could do like the good person and the bad person approach, just to like see what would happen. That'd be so cool.
Yeah. Well, what's cool is this is actually a single-player, narrative-driven adventure game created by former members of Telltale Games that delivers all the excitement and wonder of the Star Trek universe. And so what's nice about this is it's a game the whole family can play.
Well, I mean, it's a game that one person can play. It's a single player game.
Oh, yeah. It's a single player game, but each person in the family can go through it.
It's family friendly, maybe?
It's family friendly. That's what I meant. It's family friendly.
I mean, I do like the fact that they're doing a Star Trek based game. I mean, that we haven't had a good Star Trek game in a very long time.
Yeah. Yeah.
Or a good Star Trek property of any kind in a very long time.
Strange New Worlds is amazing.
Okay, Strange New Worlds is actually good, but also put that with the first two seasons of Picard, then put that with the Discovery, which is terrible. And the movies, the reboot movies that are terrible. The first one's actually good, and then the rest are terrible. But well,
not as bad as the Star Wars reboots, but they're not great.
You could actually argue that they're both equally terrible.
I don't know. Princess Leia floating out in the middle of space as an ice cube, and then using the Force to push herself back into the ship.
Okay,
maybe the single dumbest scene I've ever seen.
True, very stupid. But the second movie that has Khan in it starts off with him having a jetpack or some kind of teleporter that he can use as a backpack and go from planet to planet without need of a ship. And then the rest of the movie is about trying to stop this massive ship. Like, who cares? You can literally teleport from various planets to planets. Like, this is a waste of time. Yeah. So, I mean, I think they're equally terrible.
Fair.
Well, in this game, you play as Jara Rydick and an enlisted engineer, Carter Diaz. You will join the crew of the USS Resolute. And that was cool because that the name of that ship has been in a lot of the Star Trek ship books for years and years, but hadn't been used.
Did not know that.
Yeah.
Because it hasn't been used.
Yeah. The USS Resolute is a science vessel on the edge of Federation space. Its mission to prevent an ancient and powerful force from engulfing everything in its wake.
Very nice. What kind of weaponry do we have on the USS Resolute? Like, how many photon torpedoes do I have? What kind
It's
of
a
laser
science
banks?
vessel, I think.
Yeah, it's a science vessel.
That's fine.
So
It's a science
it always
vessel.
has
What
photon
weapons do I have?
torpedoes. Yeah.
Okay. Cool. All right. A lot of them. I need a lot. Like
not
a
as
lot.
many as NCC 1701D, but you know.
So
I think Jill was just showing off her Star Trek nerdness right there.
Yes.
get it, Jill.
And this game, Star Trek Resurgence, is only $25 in Steam, and it even has a demo that you can try out. And the Captain's Edition adds the soundtrack and ship walkthrough, which is really cool. I downloaded those too. Actually,
So the Resolute, Michael, was developed during the Dominion Wars.
Mm-hmm.
I just knew that off the top of my head. I didn't just.
I mean, I can clearly see you reading right now.
No, I'm not reading at all. And
Yeah, and also you totally opened up a page and the screen, the shine on your face changed. So like 100%, you have now searched it and know what it is thanks to the powers of the search engine.
Nobody's talking to you, Michael.
Yeah,
just telling you all my knowledge about Star Trek.
So all your knowledge about Star Trek. So what was the Dominion Wars about?
Dominion.
What show was in the Dominion was in?
The Dominion Wars was space.
Say it.
What is
You're
it?
close.
Deep Space Nine.
Deep
Yes.
Space Nine.
Okay. Also, side note of Easter egg: the guy who plays the main character of the person who's like the what's the phrase of like someone who's like on behalf of another, like an ambassador of the Dominion. The guy who plays that character is also in Deep Space Nine as 3 other characters, and he's fantastic as all of them. And
look at you and you flexing your Star Trek knowledge over here. Bunch of Star
Deep
Trek
Space Nine
nerds.
is the best Star Trek.
No,
So
Next Generation.
Deep Space Nine, TNG is great. DS9,
Classic Trek.
Let us know your favorite in the comments.
I love them all.
Yeah. What do you think is the best Star Trek? Let us know in the comments. You can send us a message also at testnationlineage.net/comments to let us know what the best Star Trek is. But let's talk about this game. So first of all, when I saw this game, I was super excited because I was like, oh, what a new Star Trek game that just came out. I can't wait to play this. And then I saw Telltale Games. And I was a little disappointed because Telltale Games, their games are like not games. Their games are basically more like cool, slightly interactive movies.
Yeah. Cinematic adventure.
Kind of like the Netflix ones where you can choose your own adventure now. Have you seen that?
I have never seen that.
They have
on
a
Netflix.
couple Netflix shows where you can actually choose the storyline and things as with your remote as you're watching it.
Okay,
And
I need to try this. I've never heard of this. I know that some people on YouTube have been doing this for years, where you have there's a thing that they're in their story and there's like 3 buttons and you click one of them and it changes and it goes to a different story.
Yeah,
like that's cool, especially when you have to go back and kind of skip through to go to the next.
That's
if you want
cool.
the
Why
whole
is it
thing.
this cool?
Because I don't have to pay for those YouTube videos, and this is $25, and this is like. So here's the reason it annoys me. Movies these days are kind of expensive in the comparison of what they used to be even like 5-6 years ago. But now they're like $15. This is a movie that is slightly interactive, requires you to pay attention and click stuff rather than just enjoy it and sit back. And it costs $10 more. So $25 for a game that's not really a game is what annoys me. Because in my experience, I've only played one Telltale game, and that was The Wolf Among Us. Cool idea, because the comic book it was based on is a very cool comic. So I was excited to play it. And then when I realized that your choices have 0 impact on the story, I had 0 interest in playing the game anymore. And that's why a game should have this thing called gameplay. I mean, that's just my opinion.
I don't know. I mean, some people don't want to sit there and play a video game. They want something like this where they're kind of interacting through a story.
But okay, interacting requires your actions to matter. Is my point.
Yeah,
I don't know if this does or not. I just know that a lot of Telltale games, one of the biggest criticisms that people have for Telltale games was that you don't really have any impact on the game or on the story.
Let's talk about Telltale games for a second, because The Walking Dead was their biggest success.
Yeah, that was good.
And it sold over 28 million copies. 28 million copies of that game. So obviously, very
28 million popular. Disappointed people who could have just watched it as a show version.
It was a critical success. People absolutely loved it, and it kind of, made them a huge popular name. But then something happened, and the company had 90 employees laid off, and they went bankrupt, and really, really bad stuff took place with the company that seemed like it was printing money for a minute there. Because like
tell me more.
Tell me more. That was just pretty good. So the challenge is the company had lost $50 million in the previous 2 years to it going bankrupt. And that, Michael, is because 15 million people watched the Batman on YouTube, the Batman Telltale series, and only 250,000 bought it. So your point about it being just a movie is really interesting one, because 15 million people were interested enough to watch it on YouTube, the story play out, essentially somebody else playing it, and only 250,000 bought their next game. So that's why they lost this business that seemed like...
That's exactly what would happen. And that's what I did with Wolf Among Us. I didn't keep playing the game. I just went and watched it on YouTube because, yes, I want to see what the impact happens in the story, but no, I don't want to go through this process of just going through the loading screens, waiting for everything. When someone could edit all that stuff out and edit all the clicks out, and I can just watch it as a thing, it changes nothing. If your actions did something, then it would matter to be a game. And that's why I think the company basically failed, is because if you're going to make a game, make it a game. It requires you to actually do something. All the stuff I looked at and the game that I played, it didn't matter. So I think what happened is people played the Walking Dead version. They saw that it didn't matter. So the next one came out, they just didn't play it. They didn't buy it. They just watched it on YouTube. Because if that was funny, because if Telltale just made the game and then recorded it and put it on YouTube, they probably make more money in the ad revenue than they would in the thing.
That's interesting. Yeah. Because that's kind of one of the downsides for this kind of game for streaming, allowing people to stream it. But to your point, if you actually made the decisions matter and have big consequences and change the story in dramatic ways, then somebody playing it through really wouldn't mean anything, because you could have a completely different experience yourself.
Exactly. It's like, so that's why I said, first of all, Mass Effect is a great example of this, because it's a third-person shooter, but it also has the elements of a huge story that your decisions matter, and some things drastically change based on a thing. So I played Mass Effect, and then I found out later that my story was so different than other people's who finished it.
I love that game, Mass Effect. It's so good.
That is such a great way to do it. And it's funny because I look at it and go, you already have the formula to do it right. Do it that way.
Yeah, because they're obviously very talented storytellers. People want to see the story.
Yes.
So their writers
I totally want to see this.
Yeah.
I don't know if I want to pay the money to watch, to interact by clicking and then waiting through the things to actually happen. I don't know. So I think that these kinds of games are great in the sense of like it's effectively bringing a comic book to life. That would be awesome. The visuals of this game, the Star Trek, looks great. And I think that they put a lot of effort into it, and it clearly shows. But if it's just a click walkthrough and I don't really have any impact,
Yeah. Well, Jill, did you get a chance to play it? Is there impact to the story?
Yeah.
Do you know?
Yeah, well, I played probably about the first 20 minutes, and I enjoyed it. It is a classic Telltale, but I thought it was very well done. But it is still kind of a cinematic adventure.
Yeah.
You can download a demo here too.
Yeah.
So if you're interested, because you love Star Trek like we do, and you want to see if it's something you want to, it's got 412 very positive reviews already, and it was just released on the 23rd, which is, that tells us a lot. Tall tells us a lot. Tell tales. Dang it, I tried to
tells us a lot.
That's a tongue twister, huh?
Yeah.
It's not easy.
It tells us a lot. That's what you're trying to say.
Tell tells us a lot. There you go. Thank you.
So I wish them all the best for this, because I want more. I want them to see a Star Trek game was very, welcomed and people liked it, and we get I want a full blown Mass Effect style Star Trek game. That would be amazing,
man. Wow, amazing. You just kind of gave me a little bit of geek chills there. About Mass Effect. And
I
all
would
of that
love that
with a Star Trek theme. Oh man.
I'm such a person who loves the lore of something that when I played Mass Effect, the first 4 or 5 hours, I didn't even get out of the Citadel. I was just learning about the different races and planets and stuff before you get into the ship and everything. And if I could have a Star Trek version where I know the lore already, that would be amazing. Please do this.
Yeah. I love it.
That is a great idea. Star Trek Online, by the way, is very good. It's a online Star Trek role playing game.
We got time for that.
And it's been around for years. I play it off and on.
MMOs are cool, but also they require a lot of effort and
a lot of time.
I love MMOs. In fact, MMOs ruined me from playing other games for years. I could not enjoy any other game if it wasn't an MMO. With that being said, the only way I could ever see myself being able to play an MMO again is if I move back in my parents' basement, because who has time? It's just so there's so much time required to farm and, I love them.
What I want from a Star Trek game is an open world Star Trek game, like No Man's Sky. Or the world is at your fingertips.
You're exploring all the planets.
I just like exploring all the creatures and all the planets, and kind of my favorite thing.
I liked No Man's Sky before everyone else liked it. When everyone else was hating on No Man's Sky, I still liked it when it came out.
Oh yeah, me too.
I enjoyed going to different planets and exploring different plants and all that type of stuff. That was cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. Of course you haven't, Michael. You're too busy playing with rocket cars because you're a child.
Okay, that's ridiculous. That's very ridiculous. And if I could have a Star Trek game that my optimal, obviously the Mass Effect would be amazing.
Yeah.
But if there was a Star Trek where we could have ships and soccer ball, and then you play with the ship.
Impulse engines to the soccer ball.
Yeah, you already got the rocket engines in the ships. So you could play Warp Speed Rocket League. Be so good.
Oh man, that is so dumb. I almost want to play something that dumb. I would almost play it. It's so dumb. That's dumb.
I mean, I would definitely play it, but the fact that you even consider it, and you could shoot your opponents and be great. Yeah.
Oh, now we're talking. Hey, Jill, get us off this topic before Michael has any other good ideas.
Okay. So our software spotlight this week is called Morphosis. You use Morphosis to easily convert your text documents to other formats. And there's lots of supported export formats, including PDF, Markdown, LaTeX, HTML, Microsoft Word, RTF, rich text format, EPUB, etc., etc. Oh, and if we can't forget OpenOffice, LibreOffice.odt.
Nice.
So I converted an episode of Destination Linux I saved in Markdown to a PDF.
You mean the show notes?
Yeah, you. I didn't. I incorrectly wrote that in there.
Could translate.
You could convert that. Yeah, that's
the actual video and stuff into a PDF of us, and we could hand it out door to door.
That would take a lot of a very large PDF of each frame of us.
Do you know there are tools to convert videos to text? So that could be done. Or
we
videos
could go door to door and hand them out like religious pamphlets.
Yeah.
Have you heard the good news of Destination?
Have you heard the good news?
So I converted some of our Destination Linux show notes from a few episodes ago. I saved in Markdown to a PDF with sans serif font. It actually asks you, do you want serif or sans serif? So I used a sans serif font because I find them easier to read. And it worked very beautifully.
Very nice.
And this is one of those handy apps that you can download as a Flatpak over at flathub.org.
Nice. And so this is cool because Morphosis is powered by Pandoc. It's not called Morphosis, but I just want to call it that because it's fun. But Morphosis is powered by Pandoc, which is an awesome tool, but it's also kind of complicated because it's a terminal-only tool, and it's for the purpose of being able to convert documents, like basically any document to any document. And you might be thinking, why would you want to do this? Well, I don't really necessarily have a great example for you, but we have a guest guide for that. When people join our show, we send it to them so that they can, know how to join the recording and how to set up their audio and that sort of stuff. And I prefer Markdown for all of my notes and basically everything I save on my computer as far as notes go. So I made the doc or the guide in Markdown. But not everyone has a Markdown player or / editor. I didn't mean player because what is that? They don't actually have those installed all the time. But everyone can load a PDF because browsers load PDFs these days.
Yeah.
So I convert the guide to PDF every time I send it. And I used to do it as something else, but this is a much simpler process. Just have the Markdown file, click it, say PDF, and then boom, you're done. So that's a really cool use case for us.
Yeah.
Perfect use, Michael.
Wow, you got a compliment, Michael, on the show. That's one.
I mean, it's because Jill was talking and not you.
Oh, okay.
Well, I wanted to do a little Star Trek tie-in. So this software spotlight is called Morphosis.
Morphosis.
When I first read that, I was thinking, oh my God, Metamorphosis, because we're talking about Star Trek. Well, Metamorphosis is the 9th episode of the 2nd season where the crew of the USS Enterprise gets to meet Zephram Cochrane.
Wow.
So Ryan.
Yes, I did that off.
Works. I love it.
So Ryan, we have just been out nerded on Star Trek.
Yeah, we got way out nerded.
Well, it does turn out that for literally most of my life, over 40 years, I've worked with the company that runs the Star Trek conventions. And I did technical work for them, including filming and mics, and I even mic'd up William Shatner and Leonard Nimoy and got
I am
to film
so
them.
jealous of your life, Jill. My life is so boring in comparison to Jill's.
Every time she says something about her life, it's always something super cool. And of course, Ryan, together, in 3, 2, 1.
Of course you did, Jill.
Yeah.
Of course you did. Unbelievable. That's really cool, Jill. I knew that you had spent a lot of time working some. I didn't know that you had that much tie-in with the different Star Trek conventions. So that's very neat.
Yeah, we used to have like 10 a year when Next Gen was at its peak.
Yeah.
So it was huge. It was and around the country. So I did all the West Coast ones.
So for me, Morphosis, I thought of Morpheus from Matrix. I'm a huge Matrix fan.
Yeah, of course. Another nerd reference.
It's interesting. You went to Star Trek and I went to Matrix on there. But, we're clearly both nerds, so it's fair. All right. So our tip of the week this week, well, you heard it a little earlier. It's Great Scrot.
Yes, absolutely.
It's Scrot.
Yes.
Michael, you should be proud of that one.
I am proud of you right now.
Thank you. I knew Michael would be proud of me. The tool is called Scrot, SCROT, and it's a command line screen capture utility to save images. We talked about it earlier in the show.
You can make your own recall if you want.
Yeah. The one cool thing about this is one of the examples it uses where you could utilize Scrot is for monitoring a server. Mm-hmm. And I thought that's a really cool concept right there. If you have a server that's crashing randomly at weird times of the night and stuff, and you need to try to run something to figure out why, that may be something to do. Also, put a camera in the room with the server because it may turn out that the janitorial staff just unplug it every night. I've heard of instances like that. So don't just rely on the screenshot utility. So there you go.
I'm not sure if that's true, but it probably is true. Yeah. That's probably happened.
Oh, it's definitely happened. I've heard stories of that before.
It's such a great tool for Linux recall as well. Our own AI.
Yeah, there you go.
All right,
Also, we've given you the idea for information to do this, people. You don't really have to do it. We're just saying it's possible.
Yeah. We talk about how crappy recall is. And we're like, yeah, but we got it on Linux.
Yeah. We have our own.
One,
we can make our own recall if we wanted, but no one would want that.
Well, the difference is like we are not forcing it on users, and it's not automatically running in the back end, and it also won't send all the data up to a cloud service to store there.
Yeah,
and all of that.
It's the Linux way of doing recall. It's basically in every way private, and you can control it if you want to do it. And it's not that difficult to set this up because the whole process of recall on Windows is just every 3 seconds, I think. It makes a screenshot. You can do that just like with a cron job and like maybe like 2 lines of code on the terminal. So it's not that difficult to do that with scrot. So if you wanted to, you could.
Yeah. Or Gregory earlier in our community feedback, he could probably do it with one of those fans that turn in a pen. There, it just takes a screenshot every few seconds of your computer.
So it's like an oscillating fan that
it just pushes.
It turns and looks at your screen and takes a photo.
All right, we've lost it. A big thank you to each and every one of you for supporting us by watching or listening to Destination Linux. I don't know why you do it, but you do, and we appreciate it.
We thank you so much.
However you do it, we love your faces. Come join us on our Discord room. We're equally as goofy and silly and have great ideas there. So go to tuxdigital.com/Discord and come hang out with all of the fans of the show. And if you want to watch the show live, well, you need to become a patron of Destination Linux. Believe it or not, there's other content outside of what's recorded here, even stupider stuff that we say.
Sometimes we can't leave it in, so we get rid of it.
Wendy edits the shows, and she gets so embarrassed she cuts stuff out of the shows so that you don't have to be forced to watch it. So if you want to see the train wreck, you can become a patron.
That is a wonderful way of describing, like, you can become a patron and get some more train wreck if you want. So if you would like to do that, you can go to tuxdigital.com/membership and you can watch us live. But in addition to that, you can also hang out with us in the patron only post show that happens every week after the show. So there's an extra bonus right there. So go to tuxdigital.com/membership to sign up. And if you'd like to support the show and the network in other ways, you can get some cool merch that we have at our store, tuxdigital.com/store. We have t-shirts, hoodies, mugs, and so much more at tuxdigital.com/store.
And make sure to check out all the incredible shows here on Tux Digital. That's right, we have an entire network of shows to fill your whole week with geeky goodness. Check out the Pseudo Show, which just relaunched. It covers topics ranging from enterprise open source to cloud management with your hosts Brandon, Bill, and Neil. And everyone head to tuxdigital.com and subscribe to all our great shows. And don't forget to leave a rating on your favorite app so others can discover the power of open source and keep those penguins marching in the full Monty of Linux and open source awesome sauce. And right now, I just took a scrot screenshot of my 3 monitors with my beautiful friends, Ryan and Michael.
Oh, I wish you would have told me how to post. I made a really pretty post. Oh, thanks, Jill. By the way, I have a new video out on the Das Geek channel. So if you go to YouTube/Das Geek, I have a really interesting video I think you guys will enjoy about a new tool that DuckDuckGo just released. Yeah. And so if you want, go check that out.
So DuckDuckGo right now to the Das Geek channel.
Yes,
check
absolutely.
Out. God, you're so good with the terrible joke. You're so good with terrible jokes. You know what, Michael? I'm on my best behavior closing out this show right now because I just noticed in the patron chat Wendy's there. So I'm not going to say anything negative. I'm scared of
best
her.
Behavior.
Yeah, I'm on best behavior right now. Wendy, you do a great job editing the show. By the way, did you notice that she put, or it was you, she said, put the advertising over the last few seconds of the last episode?
Oh, yeah, it was me.
Yeah.
While I'm complimenting Wendy, you just put it right over there. Why?
Okay, so it was great that you blamed Wendy for it.
Right here.
You blamed Wendy for it, and then I did that. Yeah. However, I didn't know I did that. It's like a 20-second piece at the end of the thing. Yeah. That's where the end screen works. So I just put it where I always put it. She was
unable to see my sincerity because you covered it with the ad.
That's not true. Other people weren't able to see it. She edited it in an editor that didn't have the so totally fine.
All right. So she saw my sincerity.
She saw your sincerity, but everybody else just doesn't believe you.
Yeah. By the way, you guys need to check out Linux Out Loud if you want. If you're wondering, most of you know probably. If you don't, if you want to know about Linux Out Loud, Wendy's on that show. She also edits this episode. That's why it's so great lately. Michael doesn't edit it anymore. It's just made it so much better.
Okay. First of all, it is true that she does a good job, and thank you, Wendy, for doing that. And also, how dare you, Ryan?
Yeah.
My editing was good. It was good. Okay, sometimes it was a little lazy, but still, it was good enough.
You wouldn't have done the drool meter. You've never taken the time.
Okay.
First of all, head.
First of all,
let's not talk about
absolutely would have. Okay. First of all, to say that I would not do it, especially when you would have challenged me in the show, you are right. I would have never done that.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Which
one
is
of these
awesome.
days we got to get Wendy to scale, so people can understand.
Absolutely. Yes.
All right. Well, everybody have a great week. And remember that the journey itself is just as important as the destination.
Thanks, everyone.
Live long and prosper.
Nice.
What's the response, Ryan and Michael? Peace and long life.
She just put us on the spot and we both blanked.
She's told us it before, too. Peace and long life.
She has told us. I don't know if I've... what's funny?
I've heard it enough.
Exactly. I've heard the other part thousands of times, right? I don't know if I've actually heard that.
But can you actually do the hand gesture, Michael?
Of course.
Okay, all right. Yeah.
Of course. I mean, as a nerd,
you practice
as a kid.
that.
Like you practice that, right?
I taught my kids how to do it already,
Good.
Of course you did. That's called good parenting right there.
That's right.
Yes.
Right.
We'll see you next week, everybody.